Rack up the deals on everything summer at Nordstrom Rack and get brands you love up to 60% off. Vince, Kate Spade New York, Steve Madden, Madewell, Nike, and more. Great brands, great prices every day at Nordstrom Rack. Just in dresses, tops, shorts, sandals, sneakers, denim, luxury bags, and sunglasses. Rack up the deals today and save up to 60% on summer at your Nordstrom Rack store.
Cheers to a great day and this ice-cold Corona.
You know what would make this day even better? My grandma's carne asada.
Throw in some music.
We can watch the game. Or we could keep it simple.
Corona, la vida más fina. Get your Corona at ordercorona.com. Relax responsibly. Corona Extra Beer, imported by Crown Imports, Chicago, Illinois.
Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And we have a lot to get into on tonight's episode. We break down the news of Kyle Bradish's injury and what that means for the Orioles. And then we're going to get into trade proposals. Some of the trades that have been speculated in the media, as well as by members of our Discord community, are going to be graded on the 20/80 scale later on in this episode. So you're not going to want to miss that. But first, Orioles on the Verge is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for the NBA Finals and Stanley Cup Finals this season. Every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our over 150 slots games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online. The game starts here. We also want to do, as we like to do at the top of every episode, welcome a new member of our Patreon community. And with that, I will turn it over to Bob.
Yes, I'd like to thank a $3 per month low A or A-ball member, Boise_hero at yahoo.com. They will have to upgrade to $10 patron level to get the name they have listed here read on air. So thank you for your support. You know, you can pay for more exposure, but I think I will spray the air freshener instead.
And we'll now get into the news this week that Kyle Bradish is going on the 15-day IL with a right UCL sprain. Bradish started in Friday's game against Philadelphia and looked pretty effective, but was pulled after just 5 innings and was revealed after the game that he was pulled because of elbow discomfort. Now, for Bradish, this elbow issue is not new. The Orioles revealed in spring training that Bradish had elbow issues and ultimately underwent a palliative-rich plasma injection in his throwing elbow, which helped him get back on the mound, and he was able to make 8 starts with the Orioles before this trip to the IL. And up to this point, Bradish was pitching very well for the Orioles. So this is a big blow to the rotation. While we don't know the full extent of the injury just yet, what it does seem like is the Orioles will have yet another spot in their rotation to fill, as John Means and Tyler Wells are already down for the season with elbow injuries. So, Nick, I'll start with you here. What is your reaction in this news?
Obviously, we don't know how long he's going to be out for. Maybe he's back. Maybe it's ultimately surgery, and all we can do is hope for the best right now. But it's really just my reaction is just this. It's a roller coaster that we've been on with Kyle Bradish this year. And I'm really ready to get off this ride, to be completely honest, because it's the highest of highs with the Corbin Burns trade. And then you find out that Bradish has the original injury and then he's back. And honestly, I didn't even watch his first couple of rehab outings because I knew I'd be way too nervous and waiting for his elbow to just explode with each pitch. But then it's you get more comfortable. He's pitching well. He's dominating those rehab starts. And then you start to feel good. It's you let your guard down and we got Kyle Bradish back. Things are going very well right now. Even though you lose John Means, you lose Tyler Wells, things are going pretty well. And then watching that game, I remember, I don't know, I think Zach, you were probably at the game. I don't know if you watched the broadcast or not, Bob, but I do remember, I think I was looking down at my phone and then I hear Kevin Brown say something about Bradish favoring the elbow or something. And I'm just guys, they shake their arms all the time, sleeve, loosen up the sleeve, adjust the shirt, whatever, just keeping the arm loose. I don't know. But the way Jim Palmer was just the way he said, yeah, after noticing the elbow thing too, Bradish favoring his elbow, I could not enjoy the rest of that game. I just kind of this pit in my stomach. And then we get the news that now it's back. This injury is back. And I think I'm not like in super panic mode. Well, we're going to talk a lot about trades and other pitchers and stuff today, and I have additional thoughts with all of that. I just think that if it is serious and he requires surgery and he is out for the year and most, if not all of next year, then I do think, from what I've said the last couple of episodes when we talked about pitching, how I've kind of assumed that attacking the rotation at like the trade deadline maybe wasn't top priority. Maybe get that stabilizer, the back end of the rotation, allow the rotation to go back to 6 guys. If they make the playoff roster, great. If not, thank you for your services. You help keep everybody fresh. You help get this team into the playoffs. But I feel like now if Bradish is going to be out for a while, then like that's one of your top 3 arms. And I do feel like maybe the urgency meter to pull off a bigger trade might be a little bit higher, because I felt really good about this playoff rotation, and we're still looking way far ahead and assuming a lot of different things with that. But this where we expect to see this Orioles team in the playoffs, and if Bradish isn't going to be there, like I don't know how confident I feel in some of the other replacements in terms of like a playoff game and teaming up with Burns and Grayson in that playoff rotation to get us there into the playoffs. I still feel fine, but looking ahead, I'm a little bit more doom and gloom. You guys know I like went off the rails pretty much when he first got hurt. I'm trying to hold off and be a little bit more optimistic, but it's not great right now.
I actually wasn't watching the game. Which game was this? Friday. Yeah. I'm trying to remember what I was doing, but I wasn't watching the game. I think I was out somewhere, but my cousin was at the game and he texted me and said Bradish is in the dugout holding his elbow or messing with his elbow and someone's warming up, like doesn't look good. And I'm thinking, interesting, okay, I'll withhold judgment. And then obviously when he went on the injured list with the UCL sprain or elbow sprain or whatever they categorized it as, I was just assuming, well, that's it. But then on Instagram, he posts a picture of him from his last start. And then there's comments from Nick Vespi and someone else with like fire emojis and prayer hands and fire emojis. And it's like, well, not a lot to go on, but that seems at least a little promising that maybe the MRI came back clean or clean-ish, or at least not like surgery level MRI. And I know a guy on the Mariners who at least some of us were hoping that the Orioles would trade for over the offseason. Brian Wu has had a couple MRIs and been like left starts early and canceled or scratched from a start this year, and then had MRIs and it came back okay. So maybe it's something similar there. Maybe they'll just give him a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks off and see what happens. But yeah, in other news, Tyler Wells got a brace procedure, so he didn't need Tommy John, could be ready for opening day 2025. So even if the news is just that, Bradish does need surgery, but it looks like it's just going to be an internal brace, that's honestly not the worst case scenario, because then he could be ready for at least close to opening day next year. But hopefully, I'm hoping for the best, prepared for the worst. It's not great, but I do think there are options that can help. You're never going to completely fill Bradish's role unless they're going to go out and get like Garrett Crochet, which would cost a lot. But I think they can at least get a solid number 3 for the playoff run if they needed to.
The injury did feel like a bit of a gut punch because Bradish has pitched so well and he's been so efficient in his starts that it just gives you this feeling like, okay, we're out of the woods on this one, even though in the back of your mind that there's a chance, frankly, there's a chance for any pitcher to have that injury at any time. The risk with Bradish is going to be higher. So looking at the news that way, it was disappointing. Now, as for what it means in the short run, I'm just kind of waiting and seeing, because I didn't know how to feel back in spring training. And if you had said to me in early April, Kyle Bradish would be back in early May, I would have thought that was really optimistic. So we'll wait and see, but I do want to go to this point, though. Let's say best case scenario, Bradish does not have to have surgery or an internal brace now, and he's able to get back on the mound within the next month. How do you think the Orioles handle him the rest of the way?
That's what I'm hoping for. And even if it's longer than a month, I feel a lot better. And you bring him back 2 months from now, even, to play it safe, or you bring him back in a month and you really slow play him along. I'm fine with that because like Cole Irvin seems to be the real deal right now. We've talked about this before, though. Cole Irvin's emergence and Albert Suarez's emergence have been massive for this organization. Cade Povich looked unbelievable in that last start. Looked solid in the first outing. You saw flashes, and then you're like, "This is going to be good." I felt, despite what the final line of that first start showed, I felt pretty confident with Cade Povich after that first start, and that second outing was so much fun. But like, I feel good about Povich. I feel good about Suarez and Irvin to help fill that void. Dean Kramer's coming back. He just pitched a rehab outing. Was that Sunday down in Norfolk? I didn't watch it, but he went 3 2/3. So it looks like he should be back soon. If they can bring Bradish back and slow play it and really save him for the end of the year, I do think like Chase McDermott is still waiting there in the wings. I don't think Brandon Young gets enough credit for the development he's had this year. If you end up like the depth is there, I think right now. And like we talked about, you can still make a trade, but you won't need to go out and mortgage a lot for a Garrett Crochet or another top line starter. You can go out and make another trade that I mentioned earlier, like a stabilizer type trade, maybe with a name that we'll talk about here in a few minutes. But you can make one of those trades and to really just help ease that pain until the end of the year when you can kind of unleash Bradish a little bit more. Like obviously it would, looking at the different options that are in front of us, that looks like a pretty good option. And if that is the case and he's back in a month or so, I still feel really, really good despite a limited Bradish, an up and down Bradish injury wise, and no Means and no Wells. I still feel good about this pitching staff if that's the case where he is back in a month or so.
Yeah, I would imagine he gets treated like Tyler Wells did at the beginning of the last couple seasons, where it's like 5 and dive. Unless pitch count is really good, then you can go 6 innings. And then in the playoffs, it's just like, go for broke. I mean, it's the playoffs. Hopefully he holds up. He's either going to hold up or not. So if you can, if you got to at least baby him a little bit to close out the regular season, that's fine. But once the playoffs hit, he should be raring to go. That would be nice in a dream scenario. But yeah, like Nick said, I mean, we have, even despite losing Wells, Means, and now Bradish out, Kramer's been out, between Irvin, Suarez, and Povich. I mean, those guys have been great, and we'll see how great they can be this beginning of this week against the Yankees in a pretty tough matchup that we're going to have there. So that'll be a nice test, but I think without any additions whatsoever, this team is a playoff team no matter what. Maybe even division winners with no additions. Could very easily be the case, but yeah, obviously we want Bradish back and healthy, so hopefully that's what happens.
Let's now consider some avenues that the Orioles could take to fill their rotation with trades. And we had members of our Patreon community suggest some pretty interesting deals, and we've had some speculation in the media about trades that could happen. We'll dive into those, and what we'll do is one of us will read off the trade proposal, say who it's from, and then grade it on the 20-80 prospect scale, 20 being the lowest, 80 being the highest. I have a feeling that none of these trades are going to hit the high or low marks, but we'll see. And I'll start here with this one from Bobby Jones, a member of our Patreon community. He has the Orioles making a deal with the White Sox to get Eric Fetty and Michael Kopech, so the Orioles would shore up their rotation and their bullpen in exchange for Connor Norby, Dylan Beavers, and Kyle Bradish. Nick, how would you grade this trade?
I feel like the YouTube comments are going to be fun to read up from this section.
Hey,
this
and
is
if anyone watching live wants to take their hand at a trade proposal, go ahead and comment it. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, it's fun, something different we're doing here. Honestly, I like this one. I'm not the biggest fan of Michael Kopech, but I would not hate this one. Like I put this at like a. I don't know if the White Sox are going to want Brnovich. I imagine they probably want someone a little bit held in higher regard, probably if they're looking for a pitcher in that return. But I do like this trade. Like a 20-80 scale, you put like a my personal interest, like a 50, 55. Fetty's my guy here in this whole scenario. I will say that I think of all the options, and I know Fetty is going to be a highly sought after target, but I just read an article, an interview he did over the weekend, and it was about the impact going to the KBO had on his career. And he talked about like the stability the KBO offered him. He knew when he was going to pitch. He knew who he was going to pitch against. Unlike if he was back in the States playing in AAA, there's just chaos. There's so much shuffling in and out. You don't get that stability. And he completely revamped his arsenal. He was really able to study his arsenal and understand how it worked and understand how to attack hitters. And the KBO lineups, they're feisty hitters. They're more contact oriented hitters. So he had to study that and figure out different ways to attack those lineups. And it worked. He was successful over there. I just think Fetty's performance in Chicago is legit. He's not like luck boxing his way into this season. It's not like a future Cy Young winner. He's not a future ace or anything, but I think he's going to be really solid back into the rotation guy for a playoff team. And I think the season we're seeing out of Eric Fetty this year is for real. And he's got that another year of control. It's like if you are going to make a move and you don't want to mortgage a lot for the future here, and especially if Bradish is going to come back this year, honestly, I'm all aboard the Eric Fetty. And Bobby has Michael Kopech in with that deal. If the Orioles want a right-handed hitting outfielder instead of Kopech, like let's go with Tommy Pham. I like Tommy Pham for the rest of
all
the
three.
Yeah, I'll take all three as well. Yeah, but yeah, I like that deal a lot just because I think Eric Fetty is one of my personal top targets that I would love to see the Orioles get.
I agree. I'm a big Fetty fan as well. I think I saw on Twitter, I think it was Dan Sanchez commented or tweeted some data about Fetty and how his new pitch mix is very similar to Kyle Bradish, in that it's almost like, you could replace Kyle Bradish with the poor man's Kyle Bradish and Eric Fetty. And like you said, he's under team control next year. I think it's like a team option for $8 million or something that's very, manageable from a financial standpoint. I would love to get him. Kopech, I feel like, is just a higher upside Michael Baumann at this point. Like, you're going to be frustrated because there's going to be times where he looks dominant and times where he gives up 2 home runs in an inning. So, I mean, I could see them wanting to work with an arm like that. And, yeah, throw Tommy Pham in as well. If it's Fetty, Kopech, and Pham for Norby, Beavers, and Branovich, I would hate to lose Norby and Beavers in the same trade, but I'd say 55. Yeah, I think that's a very reasonable deal.
Smells like pine. She said, get out the chat room and clean mine. Glad stretch, feeling pine so fresh.
The Glad Girl Group coming at you with a throwback jam. That was Glad Force Flex Drawstring Trash Bags featuring Pine Sol Original Scent. And that's better than all good. It's all Glad.
The South Dakota Stories, Volume 5. South Dakota seemed like the perfect place to unplug. But I ended up connecting to the world around me. A world where each sunset was painted, where I felt adventure's pulse with every step, and where cold water trickling, pine swaying, and grunting bison became my favorite soundtracks. I just wish I didn't have to leave. There's so much South Dakota, so little time.
Whether you're a morning person or a bedtime procrastinator, everyone deserves a mattress that works for their style. And you'll find the best mattress for you at Ashley. The new Temper-Adapt collection at Ashley brings you one-of-a-kind body-conforming technology, making every sleep tailored to be your best. The collection also features cool-to-the-touch covers and motion absorption to help minimize sleep disruptions from partners, pets, or kids. Shop the all-new Temper-Adapt collection at Ashley, in-store or online at ashley.com. Ashley, for the love of home.
I landed right about the same spot you guys did. I give this a 50. I think I would give it a higher grade if you took Kopech out of the deal. Maybe you swap Kopech and Tanner Banks, who I like a little bit better than Kopech. My issues with Kopech are the walks and the fact that he is a real fly ball pitcher. So there's a certain volatility attached to him that I just don't necessarily know that he makes the bullpen better over the remainder of the year. Now, maybe next year you look ahead and see if the Orioles can fix him a little bit in his contract year. and get more out of him. But I don't know. I don't have the assurance that he's going to come in and really make things better. Banks, on the other hand, doesn't walk as many guys. He's not having a great season statistically either. But you look at the FIP is better. The expected ERA and the FIP are better than his ERA. Good strikeout numbers. So I would consider him rather than Kopech. And to your guys' point, Eric Fetty makes so much sense for the Orioles that I just don't see how they don't trade for him, unless it's a situation where so many teams are in on him that the price just becomes astronomical, because you have him under control for the rest of this year, and then $7.5 million for 2025. That's very reasonable for a guy that's good enough to be a number 3 starter on a contending team. So he can come in, he can make your rotation better down the stretch. He stabilizes the middle of it and gives you some upside, and you're going to be able to pencil him in for playoff starts.
Yeah. And that extra year, like next year, who knows what this rotation is going to look like, right? Especially if Bradish is out for an extended period of time, and Burns, like where's Burns going to go? Like there are a lot of question marks in next year's rotation. So I like the safety blanket too of the extra year's control there with Fetty. This one's from Ben. He has a trade with the Pirates, Quinn Priester and David Bednar. I don't know why I kept wanting to say Eric. David Bednar for Hudson Haskin, Connor Norby, Enrique Bradfield, and Alex Pham. What do you guys think about that deal?
I liked it until he said Enrique Bradfield. I am not giving up. I'm not selling low on Enrique Bradfield 2 months into his professional career, full season career. Maybe if you trade out Bradfield for like Billy Cook or something, I think I would be much more about it. Priester, kind of a starting pitcher prospect, top 100 at times, but his fastball, while having a little bit of velocity, pretty straight and hittable, probably could work better as a relief arm. And David Bednar, obviously, very good reliever. So wouldn't mind that deal. But this iteration, I would give a 35.
I'll go a little higher. I'll go 40. Bednar's strikeout numbers are down this year. The ERA is not good, but I feel like over the course of a half season, he's going to do fine. Some issues that I have with this deal, I agree with Bob that I would not include Bradfield in it just because I think he would be selling low. And then Priester, I don't think it makes sense for the Pirates to trade Priester now. And while there is some long-term upside there, does Priester really make the Orioles rotation better down the stretch? And is this a guy who at 23, he's going to be 23 later this season. Actually, he is 23 now. He'll be 24 in September. That at 24 years old with very little major league experience is going to come in, pitch well down the stretch, and then be in your playoff rotation. So this deal could be better, but there's some parts to it that I like. And I wouldn't be upset at all if the Orioles pursued Bednar at the deadline.
I could care less about, could not care less about Quinn Priester. Bednar, I would love to have, but I also wonder, like, what are the Pirates going to do? Because they're in contention. The NL, like, is not very good this year. I think they're only like a game out of the wild card right now. Like, they could win the NL Central if they made a move and went for it. They do have a lot of young talent that I always love the Pirates drafts, but I just don't know if I'm not familiar enough with their organization to say like with any definitive reasoning here, but I feel like if they had better player development in certain areas, like they would have nailed these previous draft classes. But there are still some tremendous talents in this organization, and guys like Henry Davis, if he can come back up and start hitting, like I feel like the Pirates could make a move or two and be right in the thick of this a playoff race. I don't want to trade Enrique Bradfield for relief arms right now. Not if you just drafted him this year. So yeah, I'd go like the 30, 35 route as well.
All right, next proposal is also from Ben DeWorst at Orioles Status 1. If you want to get at him about these trade proposals, you can critique him over there. He has also a proposal for Kyle Stowers and Alex Pham to the Washington Nationals for a reunite with Hunter Harvey, relief pitcher. What do we think about that?
I would give this one I would give this one a 45, and my hesitation with it is including Stowers now for a couple of reasons. One, I think you could actually be selling low on him. And two, I think there's room for Kyle Stowers on this team down the stretch to make an impact. Maybe he's not an everyday player, but if he could be the guy that starts twice a week for you and gives you some power from the left side and adequately covers ground at the corner spots, that gives you some value. So I would be hesitant to part with Stowers because I think he could actually be a piece for this team down the stretch.
I kind of like this deal. I'm not going to lie. I'll give it like 60, 65. I think I really do enjoy. Hunter Harvey's having a really solid year. He's had a couple of solid years there in Washington. I imagine his numbers look even better when he doesn't have to face Ryan Mountcastle. I feel like he would be a good clubhouse fit since him and Mountcastle are good buddies. He clearly how long was he on this top prospect list in Baltimore? Like 18 years, it felt like. Just every single year. He was never graduate from these prospect lists. I'm down. Like Pham, I like Pham. He's had an up and down year. He's been pitching much better over the last month or so. Still racking up good strikeouts, not walking a ton of guys, but he's a double-A arm who's had like one really good year so far. Stowers, I'm thrilled that Stowers is serving in the role that he is right now and finding success in the big leagues. But I feel like he's like Heston Kjerstad's still in this roster. Like I feel like Stowers is replaceable enough where Hunter Harvey could add a little bit more stability in this bullpen and be an eighth inning guy. If it's not Craig Kimbrell's night, you got Hunter Harvey there to fall back on. I like this deal.
I love it. I love this trade. And I hate to say I love anything that Ben Dorst has proposed. No, I'm just kidding. This is a really good one. Just because, like Nick said, Stowers, great. I still am a fan. I think he could excel in Washington with some full-time playing time. And Alex Pham, another arm we like, but this is the year of the pitcher, and those arms are expanding to multiple times what it have been the past few years. And Hunter Harvey is under control the rest of this year and next. Since he's gone to Washington, 2022 to now, he's had an ERA of 2.52, 2.82, 2.75. His FIP is like right in line with that too, so it's not like it's been good luck. 60 innings last year. He's already at 36 this year. I think that's a really good trade. I'll give it a 60 as well.
Yeah. And an underrated thing I just thought about, a trade with the Nationals, if the Orioles make that move, Brad Selick is over there in Washington now. Love you, Brad. Hope you're doing well. But he knows this system inside and out. He can identify some of those guys that he drafted that he'd probably really like and enjoy, like some of the non-top prospect guys. And I wonder if he could have enough influence to be like, look, I really like this guy. I really like this guy. I really like that guy. They're not on, the top 30 list, but like they've got the goods. We can make them future major leaguers. And I wonder if, that helps out a little bit or hurts. I don't know, but
I also don't.
Oh,
sorry, Zach. I was just going to say, I don't know if the Nationals are going to want to sell really either, because again, the National League is like everyone's in the hunt except for the Marlins and the Rockies, I guess. But we also have Billy Cook. We have Fabian and Beavers, who will be in AAA soon. We have Hudson Haskin. Like Stowers, certainly expendable just from a loaded farm system standpoint.
Yeah, I was just about to throw in there that I think it'd be very unlike Mike Rizzo to sell when you're this close to a wild card spot, especially after some down years, where I think that they've done a good job in some areas of rebuilding the organization. So we'll see, but I think that's definitely a trade worth considering. I'll go to one now from Garrett. He has a pretty big blockbuster move here. Heston Kjerstad, Enrique Bradfield Jr., Connor Norby, and Alex Pham to the White Sox for maybe the prize pitching acquisition of the trade deadline, Garrett Crochet, and for good measure, the White Sox throwing in Jordan Leisure as well. How would you guys grade this trade?
Crochet is the wild card here with all of these deals and this whole conversation.
How much control does he have left? 2 years
That's a good
after
question.
This, or just one more?
I think 3, but I'll double check.
3 after this year?
2 or 3, yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that would definitely impact my answer. So
Yeah, I failed to look at years control there. I just looked at this year. Again, this is one reason why I would never ever have the mentality to be a GM, because and my wife would agree that she'd be the first to say I tend to overreact and go worst case scenario like all of the time. She's not wrong there. So if I'm Michael, I sitting in the warehouse and I get the Kyle Bradish news, I'm calling Chicago and saying, "What's the price for Crochet?" Rattle off 8 names. Okay, they're on the plane. They're on their way. But realistically, zooming out here, the only thing with Crochet, I love the extra years of control. He isn't. There's no need to debate if Crochet is a piece you want to add to your roster. He is a piece everybody wants to add to their roster. But like for this year, and here's the thing: Corbin Burns is signed for this year. Like this, and I feel like this year, I feel way more confident about the Orioles' chances to win a World Series this year. Way more confident than I did last year. This year is there for the taking. So I'm a lot more comfortable about pushing big chips in and pulling off a major deal at the deadline. But is Crochet going to be there for you in the playoffs? Because he pitched, where's this at? I had it up here. He's up to 85 innings, over 85 innings already this year. He pitched 24 innings last year between the majors and the minors, none in 2022, obviously injury, 54 in 2021 out of the bullpen, and then the 6 innings in 2020 when the White Sox drafted him and said, congrats, you're now a major leaguer right after
Very
the draft.
angels of them.
Like, can he go for 3 more months and then the playoffs when he's already at pretty much match his career innings in half a season? But like, if you've got that extra year of control and maybe you make another trade as well, and you can maneuver this to where you save him, you're saving him for the end of the year, then yeah, like I'm giving this trade like a solid, again, like 60, 65. Go for it. Like Norby he did great. Good job. But Jackson Holliday is still here in this organization. Kobe Mayo is still here in this organization. Kerstad, especially if Santander's back and Ryan O'Hearn are back next year, Kerstad, see ya. Enrique Bradfield, love you as well. Super safe floor, but there aren't many Garrett Crochets out there in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, this is a tough one. Tougher for me just because that's a lot to give up for a guy who you're probably trading to be a reliever for the rest of this season in the playoffs. And then you have 2 years of him he's proven he can be an excellent starter in the major leagues, obviously, with this season so far. So I agree with Nick that I feel like this is the best opportunity so far for a World Series winner in Baltimore, with Corbin Burns presumably only here for this year. I don't know. It's probably a fair offer, like value-wise. I just don't know if Crochet is even going to be a starter for the rest of the season, second half, playoffs. And if he is he just going under the knife too sooner than later? I'll give it a 45.
I'm going to go 65 because you get Garrett Crochet and Jackson Holliday, Kobe Mayo, and Samuel Basayo are still in your system, as is Cade Povitz, Chase McDermott, Luis De Leon. Go on down the list. This leaves you with, first of all, still a loaded farm system, one of the best in the game. And then you add in a starter who I do share the concerns that you guys have about his workload prior to this year and how that's going to affect him down the stretch. But you've got him for 2 more years after that. You don't have to do a whole lot in the offseason to your rotation because you've got Garrett Crochet now, and you can have him and Rodriguez and hopefully Kyle Bradish as your really formidable top of the rotation in 2025. So I would do this deal, and then you throw in Leisure, who maybe the Orioles are able to develop him into a solid reliever, and that gives you one more arm to get the ball to Felix Bautista next year. So I think this actually is my favorite trade on this list. So I'm giving it a solid 65.
Yeah, I will say, like, if they pulled this off, I'd probably be really excited. But my concerns, as I'm having logical brain right now, outweigh that factor. It is totally fair. It looks more like a future than current trade to me.
Yeah, that's this. I mean, I feel like this is a good, really good like conversation type trade offer right there, because the wild card variables there with Crochet, and there's a comment there too from John. He said, I really feel like we need a playoff proven arm. Does that weigh into like any of y'all's considerations when looking at these deals or any other potential deals that other people are coming up with and talking about that? Because like we saw what this team did in the playoffs last year with those young arms who had never been in the playoffs before, and they kind of crumbled there in Baltimore, even at home. I feel a lot more confident that Rodriguez, and we know Corbin Burns is going to be steady, but I feel a lot better about Grayson Rodriguez, like learning from that experience. If Kyle Bradish is healthy and on the mound in the playoffs, I feel really good about Bradish learning from that experience. But I think there's something to be said there too. Like if you're going to go after a guy, and there's another, trade offer there in the chat that we'll get to a little bit later, but does that have any effect when you guys are looking at this stuff?
A little bit for me. I mean, I do think it's a little bit overblown, but at the same time, like some people rise to that pressure and some people need some time to get used to it, and you never know who's going to be who. So
I definitely have some thoughts on this, but I'll save it for a trade that's coming up later on the list.
Always smells like pine. She said, get out the chat room and clean my stretch. Feeling pine so fresh.
The Glad Girl Group coming at you with a throwback jam. That was Glad Force Flex Drawstring Trash Bags featuring Pine Sol Original Scent. And that's better than all good. It's all Glad.
Whether you're a morning person or a bedtime procrastinator, everyone deserves a mattress that works for their style. And you'll find the best mattress for you at Ashley. The new Temper-Adapt collection at Ashley brings you one-of-a-kind body-conforming technology, making every sleep tailored to be your best. The collection also features cool-to-the-touch covers and motion absorption to help minimize sleep disruptions from partners, pets, or kids. Shop the all-new Temper-Adapt collection at Ashley, in-store or online at ashley.com. Ashley, for the love of home.
Let's go to Chris Resitar's offer, who says either Basayo or Mayo. All right. Connor Norby plus 2 pitching prospects for Luis Robert. It's always going to be Luis Robert in my mind, and Garrett Crochet. What do you guys feel about this deal?
Again, it's probably fair on paper, but I'm sorry. Luis Robert is hurt all the time. We just talked about Garrett Crochet's question marks. Like, if they're healthy and playing, Luis Robert is a star. There's your center field replacement with Kowser to his right and Kjerstad or whoever to his left. That's pretty formidable moving forward for the next few years, because I think he's a guy that had an early extension that has given him some pretty cheap team control going forward. Same with Crochet. And Norby and the 2 pitching prospects, I mean, that seems reasonable, but I'm sorry, I'm just not trading Samuel Basayo or Kirby Mayo. At this point, they are off the I'm just not entertaining it. So unfortunately, I have to say no, even though it's probably fair. I'll say 45 again, just because it's fair, but I can't pull the trigger.
Yeah, I settle on a 45 as well, because first of all, my answer would be a lot different depending on who those 2 pitching prospects are. If it's Alex Pham and Kyle Bradish, my response to it is going to be different than if it's Trace Bright and Luis De Leon going into the deal. So, De Leon and Bright in this package, absolutely not. Bradish and Pham, yeah, I would consider it. To Bob's point, though, I just looked this up about Luis Robert, and it is true. He has a very team-friendly contract signed through 2025, and there's team options to cover 2026 and 2027. But here's his games played. We'll throw out 2020. He appeared in 56 games, shortened season. That's pretty good. Following year, 68 games played. The year after that, 98. Last year, by far the best year of his career, appeared in 145 games. This year so far, he's only been in 19 games because of injuries. That does worry me if I'm looking at him as a long-term piece, which he would be if you're acquiring him with that contract. So as good as he is when he's healthy, that just is too big of a concern in my mind.
Yeah, I love Luis Robert. I made the mistake of drafting a lot of Luis Robert in fantasy and best ball this year, and I regretted it as soon as he got hurt. early on in the year. I don't trust it. I don't trust him to stay healthy. And going back to a lot of Bob's points and what we talked about with Garrett Crochet with the last trade offer, I do agree with Bob that I feel like this is a very fair offer and that something the White Sox would be looking for. But like from a fan, as just straight up as a fan perspective, nah, like 30. I'll pass on that one.
Yeah, I keep seeing Samuel Basallo's name floated around, and I'm sorry. It's just he is going to be an international superstar, homegrown from your freshly, like one of your earliest international signing classes. Like this is so valuable for this organization, just from a like, look what we can do for future classes that are picking who to sign. Like it's just a beacon for future success. Not to mention, he's just gonna. I have no doubt he's gonna be an amazing player. Love all the stuff, the shout out he got on Twitter today from the player development account. And yeah, I just think he's the guy you sign to an extension and he's here for 10, 12 years. Just can't do it. So I'll go to the next proposal, which is from The Athletic. I believe it was Jim Bowden, former GM, Trace Bright, and Judd Fabian for Luis Severino of the Mets. Nick?
I do like this one. I'm a big Trace Bright guy. He was my prediction before the year started. Orioles minor league pitcher of the year. No, he's not going to win that this year, but he's still having a pretty solid year. Walks are down, strikeouts good. I'm liking what I'm seeing out of Trace Bright this season. Fabian, and I know there's a lot of discussion in Discord today with the Fabian Enrique Bradfield Jr. Conversation there, which I think is an interesting conversation. Fabian, I know he strikes out a lot. I feel like that's the first thing everybody goes to, and for good reason, because the strikeout rate is high, but it's better this year in Double-A. He's much further removed from that extreme 3 true outcome player he was in Double-A last year. He's, I think, a much more well-rounded hitter this year. The power is for real. It's there. The Orioles clearly loved him. The defense is really, really good, an underrated aspect of his game. But Luis Severino has also been pretty good for the Mets this year. And I kind of like bringing him into the organization. You've got Enrique Bradfield Jr. still there. You got Dylan Beavers still there. I'm okay with parting with one of those outfielders plus a pitching prospect who is only in Double-A with a lot of question marks for a guy like Severino who's been around the block. He's pitched in New York. He's pitched in the big markets, and he's having success this year. I'm going a solid like 60 with this offer, and I would do it.
I'll go with the 55. The only thing that I would make the grade higher is if Severino had another year of control at least, or at least a team option after this year. But I think that this is a fair trade for all the reasons that Nick touched on. I don't want to part with Trace Bright if I don't have to, but you've still got a lot of other arms in this system that can develop, and not to mention Jackson Baumeister looks like he could be Trace Bright 2.0 in Aberdeen right now. And then with Fabian, you still have Enrique Bradfield Jr. You still have Colton Cowser, who, by the way, has actually looked pretty good in center field when he's gotten the opportunities this year. And I think that Fabian's undoubtedly going to be a major leaguer. But the hit tool is really the divider between him being an everyday center fielder versus a fourth or fifth outfielder that plays 1 or 2 days a week. So there's some risk there. So I think that this is a fair trade.
Not for me, dog. I can't do it. Maybe I'm the prospect hoarder, but hey, Mike Elias is with me at least so far to date, I think. I don't know. Luis Severino just doesn't do it for me. I'd rather give up more for someone better than lose these guys who the value isn't there right now to really get you a big name. But I feel like with a few more improvements, a few more months or a year of development, could be guys that even if you're going to trade them next year when the value's even higher. So I'll give it a 45 again.
We have had a couple of proposals come in from our live audience, so thank you. And Bob, do you want to bring those up on the screen? So Orioles Bird Watcher says, any way to get Jesus Luzardo with Kobe Mayo, Samuel Basallo, and obviously Jackson Holliday off the table, like Heston Kjerstad, Connor Norby, and a smaller prospect. Nick, what are your thoughts there?
If Jesus Luzardo is healthy, yes. If Jesus Luzardo is healthy and you can trade him for him without giving up Basayo or Mayo, and obviously Holiday, absolutely. But I don't think he's healthy. And for that reason, I don't think the Orioles are going to end up making a move there. It's just, I don't know the health status. I think a lefty coming to Camden Yards, I do think his year hasn't been great. I know he's already had some injuries this year, but I feel like that's a guy that you can bring into the organization, tinker with, and his ceiling is even higher. And he would be an unbelievable piece to add to this roster. But I have questions about the health, which is my only hesitation.
Yeah, I agree. Again, I would probably make that trade just in terms of the next 2 years after the season. I don't know how much it's going to help this year just because I think his velocity was down early. He had an arm injury. Turns out MRI came back clean. Now he's kind of banged up again. So I'd probably make it, but I think you're still going to have to make more trades to help the current team.
Yeah, I agree. The health does worry me a little bit just because Luzardo does have a fairly extensive history of injuries prior to this year, but there's no question that the ceiling is really high. And we'll go now to the last trade proposal here, was from Adi. Would you do Dylan Beavers, Trace Bright, and an international arm in low A for Justin Verlander if given the guarantee that he will waive the no-trade clause and his neck spasms are no big deal? Now, Verlander undoubtedly going to the Hall of Fame when he retires, going in first ballot, and has playoff experience, although his track record is a little bit mixed in playoffs. So, Bob, would you do this trade?
I think I would. I think I give this trade like a 55. I think, again, it's got to be intimidating for other teams if you're scheduled to go up against Corbin Burns, Justin Verlander, and Grayson Rodriguez in the playoffs. I mean, obviously Verlander's old in baseball terms and, maybe not what he once was, but I do think he is still able to be successful, especially he seems like a guy that can just come up big, like a Max Scherzer. He'd be our Max Scherzer edition, just like the Rangers got him last year, and I don't think he helped them, but maybe it would go better for the Orioles. And then I honestly think, if nothing else, Grayson Rodriguez, to have Corbin Burns and Justin Verlander in the locker room to learn off of, just lock in Grayson Rodriguez for like ace material from 2025 to 2030 for the Orioles.
Yeah, I like this deal. I always have a soft spot for Verlander, like ODU kid, 757. I like it, but I think this goes back to the point earlier, like that playoff experience. Like, how much of that do you weigh? Is that something that you put a value on? And for that instance, like I do think with this young staff, it could be a help. Like Corbin Burns is already there though, and we've heard over and over again how much of an impact Corbin Burns is having on the rest of the staff. So like, is that a necessity? No. But like Verlander's been there numerous times. He has numerous World Series rings. Like I do think he could be an asset. And like this is the year. You don't need to push all the chips in and say, all right, Samuel Basayo's up for trade. Who wants him? But like I'm fine with giving up a Dylan Beavers for a Justin Verlander, knowing this is it. Can we get 3 good months out of Justin Verlander? If he would say yes, and wasn't there a thing with like his brother saying he did sign off that he would come to Baltimore? So I don't think there's any concern there. I don't know. I kind of like it. I would do it. As long as he's healthy and he checks the boxes, I'm good with Verlander. There's actually, I don't know if Zach, you had more thoughts about Verlander there, but there is one more from Garrett in there that I kind of like.
Yeah, I'll just say real quick about Verlander. I would do that trade 55. It's this is not the Justin Verlander that's won multiple Cy Young awards. There's no question about that, but he can still be really valuable for you down the stretch. And again, you make that trade and your system is still loaded. So you have a guy with playoff experience who has Verlander's resume paired with Corbin Burns and Grayson Rodriguez. That's a really, really good playoff rotation. And that's, one of them can have a bad night in a longer series, and the other 2 guys will be there the next 2 starts to pick him up. So Yeah, I would do this trade.
Yeah, that one. Would you entertain Alex Pham and Billy Cook for Jack Flaherty again? And if that's all it would take, yes, do it.
Yeah,
I'm down.
Yeah, I agree. If that's the cost, I think, yeah. And I mean, obviously they know what he was in the clubhouse. If it was overblown, people saying he doesn't look like he's vibing. I mean, I'll let the team decide that. And I honestly would give it another shot. He's looked fantastic this year.
Yeah, he has. And this has been a fun exercise. And, of course, we'll have more coverage of the trade deadline leading up to July 30th. So we'll have more to say on this, but this was a fun exercise for this episode. And we've got a lot more coming this week. On our next episode, we're going to look at Matt Horvath's recent breakout, and we're going to talk about park effects a little bit. And then our final episode later on this week, we will take questions from our listeners as part of our latest mailbag episode. In the meantime, you can find us on our multitude of social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, and YouTube. We're also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com, and sign up to become a member of our Patreon community. You can join for as little as $3 a month, and at the $5 and $10 levels have access to exclusive dailies from Bob, Nick, and myself. And we're not too far out from our July Top 50 Prospects update, so now is a good time to get in there. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, presented by Bet Online and part of the Believe Podcast Network.
Glad drink, feeling fine, so fresh. Glad stretch, Glad drink with sense that take you back. Grandma's place always smells like pine. She said, get out the chat room and clean mine. Glad stretch, feeling fine, so fresh.
The Glad Girl Group coming at you with a throwback jam. That was Glad Force Flex Drawstring Trash Bags featuring Pine Sol Original Scent. And that's better than all good. It's all Glad.
Whether you're a morning person or a bedtime procrastinator, everyone deserves a mattress that works for their style. And you'll find the best mattress for you at Ashley. The new Temper-Adapt collection at Ashley brings you one-of-a-kind body-conforming technology, making every sleep tailored to be your best. The collection also features cool-to-the-touch covers and motion absorption to help minimize sleep disruptions from partners, pets, or kids. Shop the all-new Temper-Adapt collection at Ashley, in-store or online at ashley.com. Ashley, for the love of home.
You know when you're listening to a true crime story that has an unbelievable plot twist that makes you stop in your tracks? That's what our podcast, People Are the Worst, brings you with each episode. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Rebecca. We're identical twins who love true crime cases that make you say, didn't see that coming, and we hate the people responsible for them. Listen to People Are the Worst now on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.